In today's Farm Report, crop producers have two new programs that they can choose from when deciding to enroll in federal disaster programs, the PLC and the ARC. Dan Martins with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office dives a little deeper into the Agricultural Risk Coverage Program.
First, a short reminder about the Minnesota Extension Beef Cow-Calf Workshop on January 20th from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Horizon Center in Piers. The dinner will be served. Beef producers around the area are welcome. An RSVP is requested to get a meal estimate. Please call by January 15th at the Stearns or Morrison County office. Ask for Emily Wilmus if you have questions about the event. Then let's talk a little bit more about the ARC individual option in the 2014 Farm Bill. For the ARC individual program, a payment is made if your whole farm actual revenue is less than your whole farm Olympic average revenue benchmark guarantee. Calculations combine all the revenue from all commodity crops planted on your farm or for multiple farms you enroll in the ARC individual program. For ARC individual, a per acre payment would be paid on 65% of the total base acres on the farm, compared to 85% for individual crop basis for the ARC county program. That's 20% less. So some people suggest for ARC individual to be an advantage, your own farm yields need to be consistently at least 20% more than county yields to make up the difference. Both programs use the national average market year prices to calculate revenues. I wonder, if my farm yields are consistently 20% or more greater than county yields and prices follow a pretty stable trend, then it might be unlikely that my actual yield in a given year would be significantly lower than my average Olympic yield to trigger a payment. If county yields are more variable, I might be more likely to pick up farm program payment in the ARC County program. Or from a risk management standpoint, with much higher farm yields, am I likely to get a larger payment if I am hit with a really bad year? I might want to see some calculations before choosing ARC individual. Experts looking at this seem to have a tough time finding an advantage for ARC individual. There is a higher allowance for planting vegetable crops on commodity base acres. I don't know how significant that is. For the ARC individual option, your payment potential is affected by the crops you plant and how they yield, because this drives the calculation for your actual revenue in a given year and your Olympic average revenue from year to year. The most important decisions for your farm are following best management practices for your crops and livestock, marketing, and maybe crop insurance decisions next on farms with more serious yield risk or more debt, and then maybe the Farm Bill decision. At the same time, most of us pick up pennies at the sidewalk, so giving this some thought has some value. I hope the weather is good next week, and many of you can catch one of the Farm Bill meetings yet that will be held in Litchfield at the Eagles Club Wednesday, January 14th, 1 to 3:30 p.m. Little Falls at Falls Ballroom Thursday, January 15th, 9 to 11:30 a.m. Foley at Henry's Catering January 15th, 1:30 to 4 p.m. The presentation is posted on the Extension website now, along with other resources. Do an internet search for Minnesota Extension Farm Bill Education. I'm Dan Martins. Thanks for the chance to visit with you this week.
Farm news and interviews available online at fallsradio.com. Click on the Farm News tab. The 2014 Farm Bill brought about new programs for crop producers like the Price Loss Coverage, PLC, and the Agricultural Risk Coverage, ARC, programs. Dan Martins with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office has more.
Today I'll talk a little bit about the ARC or ARC crop program in the 2014 Farm Bill. Let's start with a review. For the PLC program, payments would be made when the national average market price falls below the fixed reference price set in the Farm Bill. Pretty straightforward. ARC stands for Ag Risk Coverage. It is called a revenue-based program because revenue risk combines price and yield factors. For the ARC county-based program, calculations use county average yields. For the ARC individual option, your actual farm yields are used to do the revenue calculations. For both ARC options, price calculations are based on national market year prices. The benchmark and guarantee revenues are based on a 5-year Olympic average of prices and yields. The The 5-year Olympic average means you drop the high and the low and average the other three. There are some minimum factors and percentage rates that are part of the calculations. Farmers can choose between the ARC County program and the PLC program on a farm-by-farm and crop-by-crop basis. Farmers can choose between the ARC County and ARC Individual on a farm-by-farm basis, but not crop-by-crop. ARC County revenue is calculated on a crop-by-crop basis. ARC Individual revenue combines all the commodity crops on the farm. For ARC County, a payment is determined if the current year's revenue calculation is less than the guarantee revenue. The guaranteed revenue is based on the most recent 5-year Olympic average revenue using county yield and national market year prices. That makes the benchmark and guarantee revenue kind of a rolling average or moving target. For the 2014 crop year, we're coming off a 5-year stretch of generally higher national prices ranging from $3.55 to $6.89 for corn, with an Olympic average of $5.29. If corn prices stay relatively flat through August, that sets the stage for having a revenue loss for the 2014 crop year that could result in a payment. A payment would be larger in counties that had a poor yield also in 2014 if the Olympic average yield was fairly decent. Remember, the ARC payments are capped at 10% of the benchmark revenue. If the cap is $60 per acre in a given year, and the actual county revenue is $200 below the benchmark guarantee, you get paid the maximum $60 per acre. For ARC County, the per acre rate is paid for the base acres you have for that crop, regardless of the acres that you planted that year. For all of the Farm Bill options, a farm program payment only covers a portion of the loss you would incur in a bad year. I think part of the message is if you have significant risk for major crop loss in your farm, you need to think about crop insurance and other tools and strategies to protect against a major loss. I'm Dan Martins with U of M Extension. I hope you get to one of the Farm Bill meetings or watch the discussion at the Minnesota Extension Farm Bill website and read some of the related information.
Coming up later this week, an important conservation announcement from Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack.
The first round of regional conservation partnership projects, and there's going to be a fairly significant number of projects that we, under the new Farm Bill, will be investing in and partnering with farmers and with nonprofit entities and private sectors who are interested in conservation.
Secretary Vilsack telling those attending the American Farm Bureau Federation convention that RCPP is among USDA's efforts to shine a spotlight on the investment side of conservation projects, or put another way, what farmers and ranchers have been doing all along.
And I don't think that there is an understanding among the general public in this country of the magnitude of work that's already being done, of the investment that's already taking place.
So to the Secretary, conservation investment efforts like RCPP will provide education to the general public on how sensitive and concerned farmers are about the conservation of the land and natural resources. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
The face and age of farming is having to change, and that along with the mindset of just getting by. Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension Service Office has more.
I'm going to continue on my theme of yesterday about kind of the future of agriculture and what might help us be successful as we move into the future. And I think some of the ideas I'm going to talk about today, it really doesn't matter whether you're in agriculture or whether you own a business or if you're like myself, you just work for a company, but it can really help you kind of keep life in perspective. I think it's easy for all of us in any of the occupations we're in to get down on, well, we're not getting paid enough and the boss is making too much and the weather is bad. And, it's just kind of human nature, I think, to believe that grass is greener on the other side of the fence. So I'm going to talk through a few tips today that hopefully will help you kind of think about as you move into the new year, trying to improve your life and having a little better outlook on life. First of all, I think that life is really a combination of the events that occur to us and our perception of that event. So I work with producers, it's really interesting, and I work with a lot of them over the course of a year, and exactly the same milk prices with basically the same situation, and some of them really have a very optimistic outlook on life, and they really view everything as an opportunity, and something bad happens, they go, well, guess it was my turn to have bad crops this year, and there's other people that no matter what the milk price is, it always could be better, and kind of everybody's against me, and now prices are up. So I think part of it is just having the right perception on life and saying, there are things that are going to happen to me that are good or bad, but they happen to everybody around me, and I'm just going to learn from the mistakes that I made. We all make them, and just kind of move forward from there. The other thing I think we really need to be thinking about, particularly if you're maybe younger than 55, is that we need a different mindset than in the past. Think maybe our parents or even us in a younger age could think, if I just got that new 60-cow tie-stall barn, I'd be set for life. Or if I just got this, I'd be set for life. Bought that neighbor's 40. Well, that maybe used to be when we were in the 1960s, but the world's just changing so fast now. I think it's really difficult to know what opportunities may be available or how the world might change in the next 10 years or so. So I think we need to look at everything as kind of a stepping stone to something different. And so I think it's really detrimental to have a mindset that, well, if I could just get this, then I'd be set for life. I think it's always good to be looking for the next opportunity. Another thing is I think we should all kind of laugh at ourselves and act more like children. That's one thing I really enjoy about children is their continuous source of energy and awe at the world, and just trying to learn something new all the time. And I think we all could learn from that. And then make sure we focus on our successes. I think by nature we all tend to beat ourselves up, think about the mistakes we can make, and that's not a bad thing. And then take responsibility for our future. I think it's important to say, okay, I'm going to make my own future. There may be bad things that happen. There's a world around me, but try to sort through all that noise and say, I'm going to do whatever I can to make the future a better place for me. This has been Jim Salfer with the University of Minnesota Extension in St. Cloud.
Months of negotiation between West Coast port employers and union workers have not produced a new contract, resulting in a slowdown of port traffic from Seattle to Long Beach. As California hay producer Ronnie Lynchberger told the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual convention Sunday,
our company alone, we try to do 24 container loads a day out of Long Beach Port. Last week we did 15 the whole week.
Raising concerns about lost revenue and competitors taking over markets now covered by U.S. exporters. Some good news on these negotiations came last week. According to Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack,
a federal mediator has been requested by both sides on this conversation and this dispute, which is, I think, ultimately lead to a resolution and a speeding up of activity at the port.
The Secretary, however, says the general long-term solution to ports is a total improvement of infrastructure to our nation's transportation system. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.